And it is telling that the effort by this administration through its Justice Department to browbeat, manhandle, push, cajole, interrogate, demand that states give up something that the Constitution says they should not have to give up because it's in their purview to maintain the voter rolls, tells us a lot about the determination Donald Trump has to upend this year's elections. And I don't know how much clearer we can be at this table. I don't know how much clearer the evidence in front of the country can be that is the end game here. So y'all need to wake the hell up and understand what's at stake here when there's such a persistent effort to go after your vote.
You know what? People at home, first of all, I've been watching y'all. Put some order back on this tape, okay?
Chaos over there.
Some chaos. Get some order back on this tape. People at home should not confuse normal sounding language with normal government. Todd Blanche has a superpower, if I, could say so. And I think his superpower is making the extraordinary sound ordinary and run of the mill. He does this very, very well. He sounds like a very boring, normal, good old boy lawyer that's just trying to tell the people what's going on. And oh my goodness, these Democrats are so snowflakes and they're blowing everything out of proportion when, Kirsten, what do you mean? That's ridiculous. No, Todd Blanche is ridiculous. And people need to be very well aware, just like the chairman just laid out how they're trying to steal the election. They have re-engineered what this Justice Department was meant to do and have done it using normal sounding language, describing extraordinary actions that we should not just gloss over, Eugene.
Yeah. When you watch him compared to Pam Bondi does feel more political when she's talking, right? He feels like a lawyer. That is your point. And I think the thing that's so interesting about watching how he is going to be operating as the Attorney General is there's the explicit, the heavy-handed stuff that we hear from Donald Trump. Go out there and go get him, Pam, or whatever that tweet said. Someone could fact check me. He did say it. But then there is the implicit, right? There's the fact that at the end of the day, there have been 10 years of Donald Trump talking about his perceived foes. And there have been 18 months of this administration. Todd Blanche knows his marching orders. He knows what Donald Trump wants. So he doesn't have to wait for any actual orders. So it's our job as folks in the media and the folks that care about these kinds of things to watch and pay attention, because I think it's going to get a lot worse.
So, Counselor, you had a reaction. I really wish the mics were on during that soundbite of Todd Blanche blathering sheer lunacy and stupidity, because we know that all he was doing was trying to placate Trump. But I'll give the floor to you, sir, because I loved your response. And you may share whatever aspect of that response you
may make it TV friendly.
I'll make a modified. I'll give you a modified.
Modified, but so much. It's just 7 p.m.
Okay. This was a particularly inane version of a position he has expressed before. Simone is exactly right. He's been saying this for a long time. He even said it under oath at his confirmation hearing, that essentially that he is obligated, he feels obligated to take the president's instructions because he's the head of the executive branch. Now, when Kristen Welker asked him about acting independently, he seems to have wholly misinterpreted the question as if she asked him, will you always say no to the president? And he says, well, what are you asking me? I'm going to always say no to the president. Like, no, that's not what she said. It's not what anyone's proposing. And let me just so that folks are prepared, he does this a lot. So be prepared. He strawmans other side's arguments. He can't really work out on the fly good hypotheticals, which good lawyers are supposed to be able to do, but we saw it right there. He can't do it. And, look, the point that people have expressed and that we've largely hewed to in terms of the relationship between the president and the Justice Department over the years is that, of course, the president should be able to express or direct policy priorities and resources at the department, but we draw a line, or we hope to draw a line at the president directing specific investigations and specific prosecutions in order to preserve the independence of the department and the fairness of the system. Right. Because, of course, anything that the president even implies is going to carry some weight with the attorney general, particularly if the president happens to be someone who likes firing people.
Right.
And you're exactly right. Because one other thing that Blanche said during that interview was, the president's never told me to prosecute anyone. He would never do such a thing.
We have that. Let's play E2.
If the president asks you to do something that you feel crosses an ethical or legal line, would you do it?
The president will never ask me to do something unethical or legal or illegal. He never has. He never will. And no, I swore to the Constitution of the United States, like every cabinet secretary has done, and like every attorney general before me has done.
has he never met Donald Trump? That Donald Trump would never ask him to do something unethical? We've seen it over and over again.
He already did something unethical or illegal when he authorized the creation of that slush fund that he then had to walk back, which is something that the president wanted to happen and that Todd Blanche was very happy to go along with up until the point that it was briefly an impediment to his confirmation. And by the way, I hope the Republicans who were taken in by the dog and pony show are feeling really good about themselves now, that we've got a grand total of 1 week of remarks from this man. And he's totally made fools out of Bill Cassidy, John Cornyn, and Tom Tillis.
Y'all didn't see that coming.
I wish I could say I'm shocked,
Right.
but it's like we knew this. Angelo, the Atlantic's Arthur Schlesinger Jr., about 50-some years ago, a little over 50, more than 50 years ago, actually, almost 50 years ago. Somebody get my math together. 1973.
I'm not a mathematician.
This is what he wrote in November of 1973. This was after Watergate. The headline was "The Runaway Presidency." Corruption appears to visit the White House in 50-year cycles. This suggests that exposure and retribution inoculate the presidency against its latent criminal impulses for about half a century. Around the year 2023, the American people will be well advised to go on the alert and start nailing down everything in sight. Now, I don't think Mr. Schlesinger had a crystal ball and could see the future, but his point was, his point was, how many years ago? His point was that 53, as I'm being told in my ear. Thank you. That Watergate was really about power. And we often talk about, I think the American people are now seeing the difference between actual rules and laws and norms.
Right.
And frankly, the lesson we took from Watergate should have been the things that they changed that became norms that everybody just adopted because what we all just witnessed was unacceptable. The lesson should have been those norms need to be codified into laws. But instead, the lesson was, we just need to make some tweaks and then we're going to make sure we elect good people that know better and this will never happen again. But in 1973, Mr. Schlesinger at least knew that that was a bunch of BS.
I think what you said is extremely important for a few reasons. One, it shows that they look at things over a long haul. And as the chairman was noting before, this is a fight that, it's not going to just end at the midterm elections. They are in this for the long haul. And they think of things in these terms. And it's not just this corruption part of it. One thing, a lot of their worldview that we're dealing with now came out of post-Watergate. So, for example, a memo that Roger Ailes wrote was the birth of Fox News. It was designing a network that explicitly contained within it an explanation about how you need to build a media power so that what happened to Richard Nixon can never happen again. And I can go through a laundry list of other types of ways in which...
Can you give us some more?
That's right.
Okay,
let's get into it. So Project 2025, for example, right, which everybody knows about at this table, which talks about the very thing that Todd Blanche was designed to do, was eliminate this one of many post-Watergate norms about the separation and the apparent independence of the DOJ and the presidency, which now has been finally put to rest this weekend with Todd Blanche. That is not the first time the Heritage Foundation did it. They started doing this post-Watergate. It was to start to conceptualize power. And what we're seeing with Trump, just to put a bow on it, is sort of this revanchism, this reclaiming what they feel like they lost. And, as Schlesinger noted in there, to build an apparatus not just built on revanchism, reclaiming, taking back what they think they lost, that pride, that sense of power, but inoculating themselves from accountability going forward. And that's the real key here, because it allows them to operate and act with impunity moving ahead. That's what this media apparatus is about. It's about building political power and winning elections. But see, that's where Democrats get it wrong. They think it's just about winning elections. It's not. It's about shifting culture and power itself so that you can continue to operate with impunity. Why do you think they can go out there and do all this stuff with the elections and think they can get away with it? Because they consistently, that is their worldview, and they are aligning with it, just like the pardons with January 6th, just like all the stuff that Todd Blanche has been doing at the DOJ already, and all the stuff that he's promising to do, like continue to sow doubt about elections, all the way up to the Supreme Court. They're not trying to win. The doubt itself is the deliverable here, because they are in this for the long haul. And we'd all be wise, and everybody at this table is there, to not forget that, because they have the stomach for this fight. That's what gives Steve Bannon his confidence.
They
Folks,
have the stomach for this fight. I need a T-shirt.
You just had a master class in understanding what the build-up to this moment has been.